Well, this is the video that many of you have been waiting for. It's taken me time, but I wanted to get more familiar with the machine first before I really run through the reasons why I bought a JCB 3CX for my contracting business. My name is Ollie Guns, and you're watching another Guns Contractors video. I'm not going to do a full review on this machine. I am nowhere near qualified to do a review on these things. I haven't driven enough of them, of different types and varieties, although I've driven more old ones than I have new ones. But what I will run through is the reasons why I bought this machine, how I found it to operate so far, how it's earned me money so far in my business, and also some of the features and things that I like about it. So with no further ado, this is possibly the ultimate machine I've always wanted. Definitely the most expensive thing I've actually ever bought, except for my house, but the bank owned most of that. And probably the best toy I think you'd ever buy yourself. So, the JCB 3CX. So this is a 2015 JCB 3CX contractor. UK spec machines come with the 4-in-1 bucket, in this instance with the forks here. You can also get a quick hitch attachment where the bucket comes off quite easily, and you can fit a sweeper attachment, snow plows and all kinds of things to the front as well. People often use them a bit for farming as well, very versatile for that. This one doesn't have that, and I thought at the time, you know, it would have been nice to have, but actually I quite like the flip over forks. They're very, very quick to deploy and stick back again, and that really does help with the versatility. Contractor spec also gets fatter tyres. We get the larger engine. It's 110 horsepower, I think, off the top of my head in these. And this one is the Tier 4 interim version. So we have no AdBlue, and we have no DPF, which I think is one of the last model years that that was the case. Everything newer than that has that technology on it, which means it's a lot simpler to run, maintain, especially for somebody who doesn't have access to the full computer, etc. So a real keeper of a machine this. You never get one of these again. This machine was owned by a guy in over in Norfolk, I believe, and much like myself, has a couple of smaller mini diggers, and used this backhoe, I think, to sort of boost his business. So it was originally sold by Watling JCB, and had full service history with them. It had done just over 1,700 hours when I bought it. It's now done nearly 1,900, so not a huge amount of work in, nearly 6 months. I think I bought it in October, but you know, it's done a bit for me, and that's what this machine is for, really, to boost my business. This is not going to be a front line every day I'm out in a 3CX job. This is, to be honest, mostly for the forks originally, but she's turning out to be much more useful than that, as you would expect. But you can see it is just an absolutely mint version. There's the marks on here really from me playing with it. The power slide had barely ever been moved. You know, there's plenty of paint still on the machine, a couple of small chips, but you cannot knock, you know, the previous owner of this. Has a hydraulic JCB hitch, which is technically a Geeth underneath, but badged as JCB. And I've obviously got my new Dig Bits rake bucket on it at the moment, on a bit of clearance that I'm doing here. It's an interesting thing coming from mini diggers, as I do and have, to a backhoe. It's been a bit of an experience learning about driving it, and that is by no means finished yet. I've got an awful lot to learn, and I really do thank the people who have taken the time to reply to me from Facebook and Instagram and all these places, even, you know, of course, YouTube, who run these things. And I've been watching your videos very, very keenly to try and kind of get a hang, particularly of how the front bucket can be utilised. There's all kinds of things you can do with these 4-in-1s, and they're absolutely brilliant, even down to, you know, understanding what all this means and things. I'm getting to grips with it, but it's something that I'm going to get to grips with better. So yeah, this machine, I wasn't looking to spend quite this much money, wasn't looking to get a machine quite this new, But I saw it at Sandhill plant. Ross said to me, you know, look, you want to see this because it's a very, very, very tidy machine. And he wasn't wrong. So I couldn't really not buy it, but it did raid the bank account somewhat, which I'm still reeling from 6 months later. It is, however, just absolutely beautiful. Inside, I don't think there's many options. It didn't really get ticked at the time. You got your air sprung seat, it's heated. This is an easy control machine, so essentially the back end drives like an excavator, which is a lot better for me to get to grips with than the traditional sticks, although I can move sticks. Certainly no good on them. It takes a lot of skill to get the hang of those. But it's got the fully adjustable steering column. You've got the coffee machine you'll have seen previously, air conditioning, radio, bi-directional pipe work on it, so you can run an auger or tilt bucket, etc. The hydraulic lines, interestingly, got taken off this machine previous to my ownership. Some of it came with it, and I've bought the rest of the kit that didn't for it as well. So I will be refitting that at some point, but just haven't got round to it yet. I guess the previous owner never ended up using it, or maybe damaged one on a tree or something, and thought it's easy to take it off and blank them off. But it's all there, ready to go if I want to use it. And you can tell it's never had a hammer on it because the paint on the underside of the boom is still absolutely mint. And of course, they often get damaged with the chisel ends up resting against the inside of the boom. But yeah, it really is in excellent condition. You know, I need to get a bit of the paint fade back, but really you can't knock that on a machine 2015 vintage. What's that? Nearly 8 years ago now, isn't it? So yeah, she's a lovely example, and I'm really, really pleased with it, to be honest. However, there are some things I've learnt with this. There's some lessons that I've learnt with these old Jakes. So I've got the boom stretched out here to kind of demonstrate you get the easy, the extra dig, they call it, on the back end, which gives you quite a bit more reach. And it's not quite as, I think it's comparable to most 8-ton machines, but it's a different kind of reach, and that seems really stupid. But because you've got a straight boom section in particular, I mean, all dippers are straight, aren't they? But it just operates very differently when you're grading in, and you know, where an excavator has more of a cranked boom, and then the dipper kind of here. It's quite different to operate, and it doesn't like being really close in on itself. It's not great there. You can quite easily end up with loads of material sat underneath you, and you know, it's not ideal. So you have to just drive it a little bit different. It's taking a bit of time to get used to that kind of angle, that kind of geometry. And the extender dig works on the roller, on the joystick, so it's absolutely beautiful to use, all proportional. That is really, really, really nice. But you've also got obviously 180 degrees of turn, and you're sat straight, and then the arm is swinging left and right like this. So it's just a bit different to operating an excavator, and you really have to think about getting yourself lined up for stuff, because you know, it's difficult to maneuver. You've got to put your front bucket down, then your jack legs, and it doesn't take it takes more than a second to just shift yourself around like you can when you're on tracks. So you just have to think a little bit more about how you go about jobs when you're working them. And the other, of course, disadvantage is its major advantage in a way are the tyres. You know, brilliant, you can drive it down the road, tramp down the road, get to your job, and that is a fantastic asset of these things. Its negatives are, if the ground is wet, it's very, very easy to get in trouble. So, you know, they are not a machine for every situation. Back in the 90s and before that, you know, in the 80s and earlier, you remember the concept of these machines is from the early 60s. This was really the only option available on site, or you were shoveling. So they made them work, and they will do the work. But there is a reason why 360 machines are much better at digging. But of course, you can't drive them to the site. you haven't got the forks, and the front bucket operated by the right operator is an incredible asset, and you can cover some ground with that very, very quickly if it's not too wet. So a very hybrid machine, bit of a Swiss Army knife, plenty of attachments for the back. You can put different attachments on the front, but certainly something that wants a little bit of thought as to how you're going to operate them, because you start getting into steep hills, soft ground, or particularly tight areas. These tight areas are quite awkward to work in when you only have 180 degrees on your back arm. You just have to think about how you're going to get that, that material out of where you are. So yeah, otherwise it's doing more work than I thought it would when I bought it, which was the whole point. Now, of course, a lot of you have asked why I've got the backhoe and want to know more. So we'll run you through that. This machine is something I've always wanted to own. I guess there's two parts to this. I've always wanted to have a backhoe. It's like a dream machine of mine. If you'd have come into my bedroom as a kid, I'd have had posters of these machines on the wall, and I'm a huge fan of JCB, the company, the engineering, the innovation that's gone on behind that. And it's sad, when I was a boy, these machines were everywhere. I remember them, even on sites. I remember having one in my back garden for a little bit when my parents were having some work done, and yeah, that was pretty cool. In fact, I recreated a photo that I did back then with this digger, which it's nice to be able to do, to one day go, yeah, I own one of them now. But the thing is, as much as you want something, and if I'd have been a millionaire, I'd have bought one of these. I wouldn't have bought a Ferrari or whatever. I'd have had a JCB because I just love them. But they have got to go to work, and I run a business, and it has to earn money. So what I was really looking for with this originally was a telehandler. I need something that can move pallets. Now, some of you will remember that I had an Avant, a little 520 Avant, which I've now sold. That machine actually, obviously I put some money from that towards buying this. And it did a couple of things. Didn't do a huge amount of work for me, that little Avant, but it did prove the concept, and that is that having something that can go and pick up some aggregate, some material, pick and carry, stick the forks on, move a pallet of something around, was great. The problem with it was that it just didn't quite have the capacity that I needed, really. And as a result, it wasn't the machine for me. It had to go. So I was thinking, well, what are the options out there? And it so happened that JCB have released, although I've not seen one in the wild yet, I think they call it the 51440, I think is the number, off the top of my head. It's a towable telehandler. I featured it in that video when I went to the executive hire show. There was one there, yeah, I haven't seen one in the flesh. They are about, I'm sure, or they are starting to become about, but they're certainly not everywhere. So I got a price on one of them because towing it, transport's the key really for me. Got to be able to move this stuff around, and I don't have a lorry. I don't have a lorry license, so it's a key thing for me to be able to move this stuff myself, and keeps costs down, etc. But I was getting prices back on those in the sort of high 40s for the sort of money I wanted. I'm not going to venture too far into the mire here. It's not good. And that was just too much money. Really was too much money. So that jackleg's just going into the ground, I think. Anyway, So it's just too much money, and I thought I can't really justify spending that on a telehandler. And yes, you could have had a bucket on it, but you know, it can only do a couple of things, and it wouldn't have had a huge amount of hours put on it, because I don't need to do a lot of forking, but I do need to move pallets about, and also the thing is, it wouldn't have. It could only do forking. You know, I don't need to pick stuff up and put them on loading bays. I don't need the height really. I don't really need the telescopic bit, but I did need something to move pallets. So the idea was floated about a backhoe. I've always looked at them, always thought about them, and I thought, you know what? I kind of need an 8-ton digger as well. Putting a lot of soakaways in now with concrete rings. They're way too heavy to pick up with anything I've got, and you know, I'm starting to have to hire 8-ton diggers more. And I thought, well, I don't do a lot of 8-ton digger work, but I do some of it. But also, you know, I need something with forks, and it'd be nice to have something with a bucket for picking aggregates up. And of course, you can start to see how a backhoe quite easily, you know, starts to play a part there. So I started looking into it, and I thought, well, I really wanted to spend 30 odd grand maximum. I thought, well, a mid-2000s machine. You know, I wanted easy control, because let's face it, I'm not a. There's a bit of rubbish in the ground here. We'll just pull out. Riddle the dirt out of it. There we go. That's what this bucket's great for. So you know, I'm not. I can drive X pattern like a bit, but I'm by no means an expert on it. Absolutely no means. And I really, you know, I've just got too accustomed to the mini digger controls, really, I guess, or the excavator pattern. So I thought, well, I really want an easy control machine for me, and you know, what are my options out there? Well, they did easy control from about 2005, I think it was, onwards. So that was the kind of machine I was looking at. 25-30 grand plus the VAT. You know, that would have probably have ticked a box. It'd have been cheaper than the telehandler, and it would do it, because let's face it, I can only drive one machine at once. I'm not going to use this machine all the time, and I have no intention of doing that. You know, I have no intention of going out and trying to compete with you know, owner drivers on day work or anything. You know, this is a machine that I've bought to add punch to the existing fleet that I have. You know, the 3-tonners where I make my money. I just need something, you know, sometimes with a little bit more reach, a bit more power, and it might only do 10 minutes work, but it's all, you know, it'll add up very quickly on the course of a bit of price work, you see. So that's why I ended up going with the backhoe. How I found this one was I went to a few dealers and had a look. The problem is, anything that's tidy, and of course I do like a tidy machine, but anything that's tidy was going too quickly, really. You couldn't, well, you just couldn't. God, we're getting in the soft stuff here. Yeah, it was all going to Poland or being bought up far quicker than I could ever really get hold of it. So as a result, I was struggling to find one. I had a word with someone I've spoken to before, who was another plant dealer who actually was going to buy my 8026 off me at the time, and had a word with Sandhill Plant, Ross at Sandhill Plant, and he gets quite a few of these machines in. Seems to be a bit of a niche for him, and he actually said, well, you know what, I've just got one, but it's a bit newer, it's a bit above the budget, he said, but it's going to be the machine you're going to want. And I thought, well, that's, you know, lovely. Of course, you'll always want a machine, won't you? You know, if you gave me 100 grand, I could spend it. But he wasn't wrong. He said, look, come down, have a look at this. I don't think you'll I don't think you want to let it go, and I did. So I went out looking for a machine to spend 30 grand maximum, and I ended up spending another 15 grand on top of that. Which, I mean, it had done 1,700, just over 1,700 hours. It's done nearly 1,900 now. Nearly done 200 hours in it. But it was just absolutely immaculate. A true credit to the previous owner of this machine. A man like myself, runs a small groundwork company, clearly looks after his kit, and runs the backhoe for a bit of extra flexibility, which, I can completely understand and see why. So, yeah, that became my machine. Here it is. It's 2015. A 3CX contractor spec, and she has nearly every option you tick. It's just a shame that the two options that weren't ticked was the power slide. It doesn't have a sliding boom, and the other thing it doesn't have is the six-speed gearbox, which is not the end of either option, and not the end of the world really. I actually would have liked to have preferred the power slide on the back really. But can't have everything, can you? But it even has the coffee machine, as you've seen. So a great spec. Really, I mean, it's absolutely immaculate. It's how I'd have kept it. And yeah, low hours. Just couldn't turn it down. Pre-AdBlue, pre-DPF. So relatively simple, although still has its niggles on electrics like the auto throttle we've had today. But yeah, a really nice, tidy old girl. So Ollie Guns bought a backhoe, and a lot of people saw it when I was doing the videos on changing, because I had to get some buckets and teeth and things, and I had some that were in the hedge from old machines that we'd had at the farm, old 3Cs, and we used to have that Hammer Master that I've obviously taken videos of before. So yeah, it was. I resurrected some buckets, put some teeth on, because I'd used up all my budget. I had no more money left at all. As I say, I'd already spent too much, and I had to make it work. So yeah, so I did. But it's been really good. The first, I guess I've nearly owned it 6 months. It hasn't done a huge amount for me, but you know what? Sometimes you fire it up and it just does 10 minutes work, and you think, well, that was worth it. They're so easy to start earning their money, and with that front shovel you can shift so much gear. So yeah, this is the 3CX. It's been a bit of a learning curve for me, learning to drive this thing. It's not a natural machine for me. I haven't come from wheels, I've come from mini diggers, and to be honest, I know there's a lot of people who are incredibly good on these old girls, but I don't know any of them. It's not something I'm particularly familiar with. So I've been doing a lot of YouTube, literally kind of same thing I do. I create these videos and I try and learn from them, or learn from other people's as well. And there's not a lot of operating a JCB properly, or any backhoe really. There's some great guys out there. I found a great channel, Digging OK over in America. He's absolutely beautiful on a backhoe, runs a New Holland and does these foundations, and just, I mean, yeah, it's beautiful work. It really is. I you can't say anything else. It really is very, very tidy. But it's a skill that sometimes you just got to get stuck in and use it. And particularly the front bucket work, has sort of eluded me really. It's the back end has its limitations. Obviously, it only goes 180 degrees, right? So you have to get yourself set up right and think about the job. But the front end, is where the real skill is, I think, and it's a job that I would like to get a lot better at. So yeah, you know, feel free to berate me for getting stuff wrong, because I haven't done a lot of front work, and I'm learning, and I'm open to people telling me how to do it, because there's a real skill here. Visibility to that front shovel isn't great. You know, I've done a bit on skid steers, and particularly the stand on skid steers, but you know, you haven't got great visibility to that front shovel, so you have to kind of, a lot of it's feel, a lot of it seems to be a bit of guesswork and just knowing where the cutting edge is, you know, at a certain point, which isn't necessarily that straightforward. But I'm learning. And the ability of the forks on it, you know, I did think, shame it hasn't got the quick hitch front bucket, but actually I think having the forks that just flip over, it makes it so easy to do. They're actually a bit of an asset, to be honest. So kind of pleased that, you know, in hindsight, that it's gone that way. Yes, I probably could find some attachments and make use of a quick hitch. You know, I do like an attachment, but you can't carry it all with you. Remember, you know, it's you can't bring your sweeper and your buckets and your shovel and everything with you on the front end, you know, when you come to a job. So partly, you know, it's a good idea, and it seems like a good idea, and it sounds good, but also sort of part of me thinks, well, actually better off with the standard setup. It's worked really well for me. You can just quickly flip the forks over, pick a pallet up. Visibility with them is pretty good, because you can open the shovel and then sort of look through the clam as such. Like you know, when you hang it down like that, you can see where your forks tips are when they're hanging over. So that all works pretty well. And yeah, the ability to get some gear, you know, drive over to a pile of aggregate, clamp a bucket full of stuff and drive it back to where you're working. For me, particularly when I'm at those schools where I can't tip my aggregates and my stuff next to where I'm working, often, you know, it's sometimes nearly half a mile away from the job. It's a massive advantage to just be able to drive over there. And this has been used actually as a wheelbarrow quite a lot. And you know, some would say, well, a bit of a waste of a machine, but that's how it's earning me money, you know, that's how it works, right? So versatility is key, and I've driven it to a couple of jobs now. It's quite a scary thing on the road, but it does, it romps along fast enough. I tell you, I don't think I'd want the 6-speed box as a beginner, because I think you can get yourself into trouble with that thing pretty quickly. This machine, yeah, doesn't seem to lack power, and although you haven't got that ultimate top speed, and I know the new ones do like 50k or something secretly. I know you're not meant to, but you know, I just think that's, unless you're actually on like a dual carriageway or something, 50k is fast, you know. Right, this is where we're starting to get in trouble here, because we've got a good load on the bucket and we're doing not a lot of turning. Come on. Just need to get the front wheels to get some traction. The other thing you can do is hang the back actor out, as I understand it, which takes a bit more weight to the back, which is where we need it. No, we are stuck. We've fogged the rear arm in. So you can do these operations, you see. It's not quite as easy, and you can't obviously do both at once, but you can hold your finger down on the button on the back of the trigger and move your back end. So this is where we need to like basically give up with the pile we've got and just walk ourselves out of this situation. Come on. There we go. Come on, just avoid those ruts. No. What we've got, the problem is we've got ourselves stuck in these ruts. There we go. Now we're out. Now we're out. Now we're out of there. So yeah, you can get yourself caught up in these things quite easily, especially when the ground's a bit wet like it is. It's very easy to get yourself into a bit of trouble, which is no good. So might have to give up on that idea. Smooth that out. Because obviously with this spring we've had, the ground is still rather sodden. And that's fair enough, isn't it, really? Fair enough. Anyway, I'm going to leave this pile here. As I say, I don't think we're going to be getting anything nicer out of it. See if we can't spin around. Seems like a monster old dinosaur, these things to drive, but they're actually more capable than you give them credit for, especially if you're sympathetic to what's going on. It'd be very easy to get stuck as well, don't get me wrong, but if you can kind of feel what's going on, you know, which is all about being an operator, isn't it? Sort of understanding what the machine is up to and what's going down. And you can, I think, avoid a lot of this trouble just by a bit of clever driving. So yeah, really, I mean, I bought the machine for its forks, its forking ability, moving pallets and things, you know, but it's since proved itself equally useful as a wheelbarrow, or you know, just to work out of as an alternative to the dumper, or on pick and carry duties where, you know, you can literally go and grab a pile of soil or something, which is or aggregate or whatever it might be, you know, loose tipped materials that you can just very quickly go and grab a bucket full of, which is, you know, equivalent to my 1.5 ton dumper, and it's been absolutely brilliant really for that, and very, very versatile. But of course it's also earned its money as a, you know, as a digger, as an 8-tonner. It's not anywhere near as good at digging as an 8-ton digger would be, and I think, you know, no one would expect it to be. There are massive limitations with these things, but it also has its, you know, its other advantages. It might be a little bit slower on its digging cycles. You know, you can only use it in 180 degrees. It's very, very, very powerful. Absolutely plenty of power on it. And if you set yourself up right and you think about your job and how you go about it, you know, I've set myself on track mats before where I didn't want to create too much mess. It's a very, very versatile machine, and it can quite easily do the work that you would otherwise have hired an 8-ton digger for, which that's the whole point, right? You know, so if it does the job in 80% of the situations, 90% of the situations that you'd have hired one for anyway, then you're winning, really, aren't you? And that's what I like to think. It's not going to replace an 8-ton digger in any way, and I can completely see why these, you know, those machines are so popular, and they are very, very accessible. These are a little bit trickier to get the hang of, but as an overall package for someone like myself who runs a contracting company doing a variety of different types of work, this backhoe has exceeded my expectations, which yeah, you know, that's brilliant, really. That's the whole point in owning it, isn't it? Try and clean my bucket out. That's better. So yeah, really pleased I got it. As you know, it was always a dream one day to own one, and it's nice to be able to say that I can justify one properly, because it does actually earn its money, which is great. And it can sit for a few weeks. You know, I was never ever going to be able to afford a brand new machine. It's just not. It's not the kind of work I do. It's just not going to work. But she can quite happily sit for a few weeks at what I paid for it, and when I need it, it's there to be used, which is the key, right? It's the whole point.